I am not judgmental by nature, and I've never really been on that train of thought for as long as I've been aware. I also do think that there is much confusion in distinguishing between perceiving and making an observation as compared to judging. Just to be clear on what I am referring to, judging to me would be analyzing people and situations with a lens of bias and a refusal to be open to any other perspective of viewing the same. For example, if I were to see a random man walking near a school, and I was under the perception that all men in such positions have awful intentions and without much proper thought reach the conclusion of assuming that he is a creep and that he should be kept at bay from younglings, is judging regardless of the fact whether your chance perception turns out to be right or wrong. In the same situation, if you were to consider other scenarios, such as the man being related to one of the students, or just being fond of children in a good natured way, etc., or at least would have given it some time and thought, and spot actual context clues to form a probable assumption, then it would be an act of perceiving. Being a dominantly perceiving person instead of judging is an ideal trait to have, not just for oneself, but for others around us as well. And maybe that's exactly why people don't really try to change that particular quality about themselves often. But the process of thought precedes an action, at least in the case of non reflexive actions, which would constitute most of the decisions we make on a daily basis, even if it doesn't feel like it. And since our actions do inevitably pose an impact on our life, hence the way we think is not as harmless as we think sometimes, and it certainly isn't something that doesn't affect other people just because we think it's just in our head. A judgmental mindset is extremely harmful for a society and can act as a minor or major threat. Healthy relationships are quite literally a scarcity if you adopt such a mindset, let alone if it is paired with a controlling nature as well. A lack of understanding and safe space will always keep a connection weak, no matter if there are no other flaws in the relation. In personal relations, trying to adopt a mindset of not caring about being judged doesn't help either because that is also just a form of being distant and detached, which is the direct opposite of connection. The weight of responsibility doesn't land on you, though, because it is only natural to want to protect oneself from the hurt that comes with being judged. People often refer to a lack of proper understanding, especially for parents and children, as an effect of generational gap, but it is more so a lack of willingness to not judge the other person and be open to understand their different perspectives, even if you don't agree with it. That's another misconception that I see an awful lot of judgmental people using as justification, mistaking being understanding as being a doormat and being nice as being a people pleaser. Just because you're willing to listen and open to understand doesn't mean you have to agree or even be okay with every opinion. It's just that you don't push a self-righteous narrative and be straightforward in the name of being rude. If one does understand that they fall under the latter category and feel guilty plus wish to change, then I personally think that that's a very brave decision and also something they can accomplish. Moreover, I quite admire that spirit. I do think to break a habit you must understand the pattern and be vigilant of the triggers and then make a different decision towards the path that you now want to make a pattern at every trigger so that you can break that habit and establish your desired ones. For example, I've traced down the pattern of whenever my brain starts thinking about harming myself in minute or major ways, and now whenever I start thinking like that, another voice in my mind just yells stop, and it does stop. Another thing you can do is shut your mouth, and I don't mean that in a rude way. I just mean that whenever I realize that I'm about to yell, I just go silent now, or at least I try to, and I do it most of the time since I get triggered easily given my extreme mood swings. I try to do that, especially if I am talking to my brother, because I vividly remember how scared I would get at being yelled at or hearing shouting when I was younger. That is the reason why I still dislike it so much to this day. I don't want my brother to feel the same things I did, so I try not to trigger such thoughts. In a similar manner, when you feel like you're going to pass a judgmental comment or remark, then you should just go silent and reason with yourself why you don't mean to say it till you know you won't. I know going nonverbal isn't the best course of action, but it is easier to adopt when you're struggling, and when you get a bit better, you would no longer need to do it. And when you'll be able to drop the judgment and become more understanding, then you'll be able to forgive.